There's a famous anecdote of a conversation that is said to have happened between Alexander the Great and Diogenes, who was a Cynic philosopher from Athens in the 4th century BC. On the occasion that Alexander saw Diogenes sorting through human bones in a graveyard, he asked the philosopher what he was doing. Diogenes said to Alexander, "I was searching for the bones of your father, but I could not tell them apart from his slaves." In another context, this could almost be seen as a comedic jest, but it underlines the great sorrow of the human condition that Diogenes was so good at revealing. Whether king or slave, high or low born, we all die the same death and return to the same dust. Such was the fate even of the great archetypes, King David and Achilles, two of the most recognizable ancient heroes, revered by Hebrew and Greek. In a previous video, we discussed that what they have in common is striking, and what they teach is priceless, but their greatest divergence in character comes in their darkest moments, as we find both similarly stuck in the black depths of despair, in the bitter cave of mourning, face to face with the reality of death. While both David and Achilles experienced rebirth in the allegorical caves of their own stories, neither achieved a full cosmic redemption. No matter how divine the blood was that ran through Achilles, nor how beautiful the Psalms David would later write, both died and saw corruption of the body. Achilles has the ironic misfortune of falling in battle to the likes of Paris, the cowardly prince of Troy who is directly responsible for kicking off the events of the Trojan War. It's ironic that such an iconic, godlike man can fall to the most despicable man of vice on the continent. A short life that is equal parts poetic, ironic, and tragic. Even David, though he would become the great king of Israel, to be remembered forever, would fall into mortal sin, lusting after a woman who belonged to another man, ordering his murder through the gruesome politics of war, and taking her as his wife, hiding his shame. And all of this because David was not where he was supposed to be. And so the man after the heart of God would see his kingdom and posterity split after him. And although David would always have a lamp before the one God, it is not what it could have been. Despite our best efforts, no man of the dust can escape the pull and finality of death. And then, along came the man of heaven. One of the reasons I find the Gospels in the New Testament so reliable is that the men who witnessed Jesus on earth wove together a Messiah who feels the sting of death with us. While much of the Gospel gives us insight into the ethical teachings of Jesus and the sharp disagreements with the religious elite, the rest is the story of a suffering servant, not so far removed from the very real stain of death on humankind as to be out of touch. Rather, when Jesus was brought face to face with the suffering that death causes, he wept. Now a certain man was ill, Lazarus of Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. The sisters sent to Jesus saying, "Lord, the one whom you love is ill." But when Jesus heard it, he said, "This illness does not lead to death. It is for the glory of God, so that the Son of God may be glorified through it." I want to highlight how Lazarus here is called the one whom Jesus loves. There is a parallel here between our other two archetypes. Achilles loved Patroclus more than his own soul, as did David with Jonathan. Keep this in mind as we continue. Now when Jesus came, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Martha said to Jesus, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that whatever you ask from God, God will give you." Jesus said to her, "Your brother will rise again." Martha said to him, "I know that he will rise again in the resurrection on the last day." What Jesus says next is among the most important words ever spoken. It is a cosmic challenge. It is a reversal from the endless cycle of suffering propagated by the unavoidable jaws of death. Jesus is declaring success where the likes of Achilles and David failed. Jesus said to her, "I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live. And everyone who lives and believes in me shall never die. Do you believe this?" And I believe that this is a question we all must ask ourselves. Do we believe that man can transcend beyond the certainty of the grave? When Jesus saw Mary weeping, and the Jews who had come with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in his spirit and greatly troubled. And he said, "Where have you laid Lazarus?" They said to him, "Lord, come and see." And and Jesus wept. Again, a Messiah who feels the hideousness of death with us. So the Jews said, "See how he loved him." But some of them said, "Could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man also have kept this man from dying?" Then Jesus, deeply moved again, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone lay against it. Again, we find someone in the cave, face to face with death. Whether Achilles in the Iliad or David in 1 Samuel chapter 24, Jesus is facing the same obstacles. But then, he says something profound. Jesus said, "Take away the stone." And Jesus lifted up his eyes and said, "Father, I thank you that you have heard me." When he said these things, he cried out with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out!" And a dead man came to life. This is no longer a fanciful story, no longer the history of an ideal kingdom come and gone. This is something altogether new, altogether better. This is resurrection from the dead. This is a battle of authority, not fought with sword, not with a constitution, but with a word. And where David and Achilles fail, here, the man from heaven offers an invitation, that through him, and him alone, we too can come out of the caves of death and awaken to new life. The stone has been taken away, and the man from heaven is calling your name.